You're signing it tonight. There's no reason to drag this out. The words landed before I even sat down, like the decision had already been made somewhere I wasn't invited to. I didn't respond right away, just stood there for a second longer than normal, long enough to feel how quiet the room had gone around that sentence. If you're here with me, just settle in for a minute, grab something to eat or drink because none of this started the way it should have. And it didn't stay simple for long. I took my seat slowly, noticing how my dad didn't look up again, how my mom's hands were folded too neatly, how my brother avoided eye contact like there was something already agreed on that I hadn't caught yet. No one explained anything. No one needed to. The paper was already on the table. And the way it was placed, centered, aligned, waiting, told me this wasn't a discussion. It was an expectation. Something about that felt rehearsed, like I had walked into the middle of something that had been decided hours ago. I glanced at my brother again just for a second, and the way he looked past me instead of at me made it clear. He knew exactly what this was. I just hadn't been told yet. And that was the first thing that didn't sit right. It didn't get better when they started talking. It got clearer. My mom spoke first, her tone soft, controlled, like she was choosing each word carefully. "It's just a temporary arrangement," she said, like that explained everything. My dad added something about responsibility, about timing, about how things needed to be handled properly. My brother stayed quiet at first, then chimed in with just enough to make it sound reasonable. That was the pattern, one after another, each of them adding a layer, not enough to explain it fully, just enough to make it feel like I should already understand. I didn't interrupt. I didn't push back. I just listened. Because when people think you already agree, they say more than they should. And they did. Not all at once. Not clearly. But enough. Enough to realize this wasn't sudden. This had been building. Planned. Structured in a way that didn't include me until the moment they needed something signed. And the more they spoke, the more I noticed what they weren't saying. That gap, that space between what was explained and what was avoided. That's where the real story was hiding. And I was starting to see it. By the time the conversation shifted, it wasn't about explanation anymore. It was about pressure. My dad's tone tightened slightly. My mom leaned in just a little more. My brother started talking faster, like he needed to fill the silence before I did. "It's not a big deal," he said. "It's just how things work." That phrase didn't land the way he wanted it to, because now I was paying attention to patterns. Same words. Same deflections. Different voices. They weren't explaining, they were aligning. And that's when the discomfort turned into something sharper. Because alignment without clarity usually means one thing: control. I kept my expression neutral, didn't give them anything to react to. That was important. Because the moment you react, they adjust. And I wasn't ready for them to adjust yet. I needed them to keep talking. To keep assuming. To keep believing I was still following their version of this. Because every second they stayed comfortable was another second they revealed something they didn't mean to. And I was starting to understand why they needed me quiet. It became obvious in the way they started stacking their words. My mom: "You know we'd never put you in a bad position." My dad: "This benefits everyone." My brother: "You're the only one who can do this." One after another. No pause. No space. That wasn't conversation, that was pressure built in layers. And it worked. At least, it would have worked if I hadn't noticed how rehearsed it felt. Not scripted exactly, but familiar. Like they had gone over this before. Without me. I let it. Not aggressive. Not emotional. Just enough to slow things down. And the way they reacted to that one small interruption told me everything I needed to know. Because none of them answered directly. They redirected. Rephrased. Avoided. And when people avoid something that's simple, it's never because the answer is complicated, it's because the answer is something they don't want you to hear. And I was getting closer to it. By the time I picked up the document, I already knew this wasn't about what they were saying. It was about what they needed me to believe. I didn't rush. Didn't skim. Just read slowly, line by line, letting the silence build around me. That silence mattered. Because now they were waiting. Not talking. Not guiding. Just watching. And people reveal more in silence than they ever do in speech. I noticed the wording first. Then the structure. Then the part they had carefully avoided mentioning. It wasn't obvious at a glance. It wasn't supposed to be. But once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. That's when everything shifted. Not outside. Not visibly. But internally. Because now the situation wasn't unclear anymore. It was controlled. Designed in a way that looked temporary but wasn't. And the fact that they hadn't said that out loud wasn't an oversight. It was the plan. I kept reading anyway. Slower now. Just to see how long they'd let me sit with it before someone tried to interrupt. And how they chose to interrupt told me exactly how aware they were of what I had found. "You're overthinking it," my brother said eventually. Too quickly. Too casually. That word again. Overthinking. Same tactic, different moment. I didn't respond. Just let the paper rest in my hands like I was still considering it. Because reacting would have ended it too early. And I needed this to go further. I needed them to believe they still had control. My dad stepped in next, repeating something about standard language. My mom added something about trust. There it was. Not explanation. Not clarification. Just trust. The fallback when logic doesn't hold. That's when I knew the truth wasn't just in the document. It was in how badly they needed me not to question it. I tapped the page lightly. Not pointing. Not exposing. Just enough to create tension. And the reaction was immediate. Subtle but there. That small shift, that moment of stillness, that was confirmation. Because now they knew I had seen something. And they didn't know how much. "I just want to understand this part," I said quietly. That was all it took. The room changed instantly. My dad's posture shifted. My mom leaned forward. My brother stopped speaking altogether. Because now I wasn't following anymore, I was observing. And observation breaks control. I didn't accuse. Didn't explain what I saw. Just let the question sit there unanswered. And the silence that followed? That was louder than anything they had said all night. Because in that silence they were deciding how much to reveal, and how much they could still hide. That hesitation told me everything. Not clearly. Not completely. But enough. Enough to confirm that what I had noticed wasn't accidental. It was intentional. Structured. Built into something they expected me to accept without reading closely. And the moment they realized I hadn't done that, the entire balance shifted. I didn't push further. Not yet. I let them recover. Let them explain around it instead of through it. Because the more they tried to fix it, the more they exposed. My dad's words became more careful. My mom's tone softer. My brother more impatient. That imbalance? That's where truth shows up. And it did. Not in one clear sentence. Not in a confession. But in fragments. In contradictions. In the way their explanations didn't line up with the document in my hand. That's when the realization fully settled. Not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly. This wasn't temporary. It wasn't shared. And it definitely wasn't in my favor. And the fact that they needed me calm, agreeable, and quiet to make it happen meant one thing. They weren't sure I would say yes if I understood it completely, and now they knew I did. I lowered the paper slowly. Didn't look at them right away. Let that silence stretch just a little longer. Because now the control wasn't with them anymore, it was with me. And they felt it. You could see it in the way no one spoke first this time. No one rushed to fill the gap. Because now they were waiting for me. Not the other way around. I set the document down, placed the pen beside it, exactly where it had been before. Calm. Precise. No sudden movements. Because control isn't loud, it's deliberate. Then I looked up. Not at all of them. Just at the person who needed this the most. And I said one word. No explanation. No emotion. Just enough to end what they thought was already decided. No, and the moment that word settled into the room, everything they had built around my silence collapsed. Because it was never about whether I would sign. It was about whether I would understand before they ran out of time to make me.